The fog is lifting. Clarity is calling you forward. Welcome to Forward in Freedom. I'm Tanya Johnson. This is where awareness becomes power. Let's move forward in freedom.
Why do you stop trusting yourself after a confusing or emotionally draining relationship? Why do simple decisions suddenly feel heavy? And even when something feels off, you still question your own instincts. And maybe the hardest question of all, how do you trust yourself again when you don't fully trust your own judgment anymore? Because for many people, the relationship doesn't just end. The confusion stays, the second guessing follows you, and it doesn't stay in one area of your life. It shows up at work, in conversations, in leadership, in decision making. What used to feel clear now feels uncertain. What used to feel natural now feels calculated. Let's name this clearly. After a confusing or emotionally difficult relationship, you don't lose your intelligence. You don't lose your capability. You don't lose your discernment. What gets disrupted is trust in what you notice. Because over time, something subtle happened. You noticed things, but you explained them away. You felt tension, but you minimized it. You saw patterns, but you gave the benefit of the doubt again and again and again until eventually you stopped trusting your own awareness. You didn't lose your discernment, you learned to override it. This doesn't stay in personal relationships, it follows you into professional spaces. You hesitate before speaking up, even when you're prepared. You rewrite emails multiple times. You soften your language so you won't be misunderstood. You replay conversations after they end. You question your tone. You question your timing. You question your decisions, even when nothing went wrong. And what used to take you seconds now take you minutes and sometimes even hours. Workplace behavioral research shows that ongoing interpersonal stress significantly increases hesitation, overanalysis, and reduced confidence in decision making. Not because the ability is gone, but because internal trust has been disrupted. What self-trust? When self-trust is low, even clear decisions feel uncertain. Second guessing is not your personality, it's a learned pattern. When your reality was questioned, redirected, or reframed, you learn to pause before trusting yourself. You learn to ask, am I right? Am I overreacting? Am I missing something? And that pause became your default. But here's the truth. That pause once protected you, now it delays you. And rebuilding self-trust doesn't begin with confidence. It begins with honesty and permission. Permission to acknowledge what you already see without immediately softening it, explaining it, or overriding it. Because many people don't lack clarity. They lack permission to stand on it. So the shift begins here. You stop asking, do they agree with me? Am I being too much? Will this upset someone? And you begin asking, what am I actually observing? What keeps repeating? What is consistent even if I don't like it? Because discernment doesn't arrive once, it repeats. It shows up in patterns and behavior, in what continues, not what was promised. And this is where your power returns. You don't need full explanation to honor what you're noticing. You don't need perfect wording to respect what feels off. You don't need agreement to pause your involvement. You don't need a full explanation to honor clear patterns. At work, this might look like you notice a colleague who consistently shifts responsibility, a leader who praises you publicly but undermines you privately. You notice that your input is acknowledged but rarely implemented. And before, you may have said something like, maybe I'm reading too much into this. Let me give it more time. I don't want to assume. But now you observe the patterns. And instead of reacting emotionally, you adjust strategically. You document more. You communicate more clearly. You reduce unnecessary exposure. You stay aware. And this is discernment in action. Not reactive, not defensive, aligned. Let me pause here for a moment, because if you're listening and you recognize yourself in this conversation, especially if this is showing up in your workplace or in your relationships, you don't have to navigate this alone. Through Clear Direction Coaching, I work one-on-one with people who are rebuilding clarity and learning how to trust themselves again. Sometimes one honest conversation can help you see what's been right in front of you. If that would support you, you can learn more at www.cleardirectioncoaching.com. Now let's continue. Rebuilding trust is not about becoming louder. It's about becoming aligned with what you already know. And that happens in small, repeatable ways. You make a decision and you allow it to stand without reopening it 5 times. You notice discomfort, and instead of explaining it away, you stay with it long enough to understand it. You recognize a pattern, and instead of hoping it changes, you factor it into your decisions. This is where your power returns. Not in big declarations, but in consistent alignment. And at work, you stop over explaining simple points. You trust your preparation. You don't chase agreement. You present clearly. You allow silence without rushing to fill it. And in relationships, you stop reclarifying what has already been stated. You stop negotiating what you've already decided. You stop overriding discomfort just to maintain a connection. And slowly your internal world stabilizes. Your decisions become cleaner. Your energy becomes more protected because you're no longer working against yourself. Clarity returns when you stop negotiating with yourself. Self-trust rebuilds like this. You notice, you honor, you act in alignment again and again. That repetition creates stability, and that stability restores confidence. I would also like to remind you that God is not a God of confusion. So when confusion increases, something is being overwritten. Because clarity doesn't always come loud, but it does come consistently. And the Holy Spirit is within you, leading, prompting, guiding. Discernment is a part of that guidance. And when you begin honoring it again, clarity begins to return. God leads with clarity, and confusion often follows overrides. Here's your freedom nugget for this week. You rebuild trust in yourself by honoring what you already see. So how can you apply it? This week, choose one moment where you would normally second guess yourself and instead stand on what you know. Not loudly, not defensively, just clearly. That's how trust begins to rebuild. Let's slow this down just a little. Where in your life do you already have clarity, but keep asking for confirmation? Is it something at work, a relationship, a decision you've already made, but keep revisiting? And then I want you to ask yourself, what would change if you trusted what you already see? If today's conversation resonated with you and you're ready to stop second guessing yourself and start moving forward with clarity, I invite you to take the next step. You can book a 15-minute consultation at www.cleardirectioncoaching.com. And we can talk through where you are and what rebuilding that clarity could look like for you. And if you're still trying to understand your relationship patterns, I also recommend the Gathering Alliance Relationship Assessment. It is a powerful tool to help you step back and see clearly without confusion. And if you want to go deeper into this journey, my book, A Woman's Exodus, Only by Grace, walks through what it looks like to come out of confusion and into truth. You can find more information and direct links to all of these resources in the episode notes. Now let's talk about next week. We're going to go deeper. This is what we're going to be discussing. What happens when you ignore discernment for too long? And how do you recover from decisions you knew weren't right? That is where we're going to be headed. I'm Tanya J, and this is the work of walking forward in freedom. Until we meet again,